Hello mathematicians, this is Mrs. Petrova with a 7.1.2 core lesson from 6th grade. The target of the lesson is comparing rates with tables and graphs. Before we continue with our notes, please have the ebook ready, notebook and note paper, things to write with. In addition, as a reminder, we want you to make sure you are pausing. If I'm going too fast or I'm writing, I already have things written, so pause the video. Write things down. This is in your notebook. Be responsible for your notes. Think, don't just copy mindlessly. And finally, go back when you need to rewatch the video. So let's begin. To compare the two runners, the news station wanted to make a graph at their rates. A. Create a table of values for Yoshi's running rate similar to the one for Wendy in problem 7-14. Work with your team to decide how to set up the table and complete it. Now let's go back to problem 7-14 because they're saying we are going to make our table in our notebook, but we have to look and go back to see how we did it for 7-14 for Wendy. Okay, so looking at Yoshi's information from 7-14, we have 70 meters in 11 seconds, but we also have this information as well. So they want us to create similar to Wendy's data. So in my notebook, I wrote the table using the time in seconds and distance in meters. Now, we could also record the table horizontally. I just decided to do it vertically, similar to Wendy's. I also recorded the given information, and then now I need to complete it. Now, 70 meters belongs to the distance, so we want to write the 70 here. And the 11 seconds is time, so we want to record it over there. Now, remember we also estimated, but then we found it exactly as 6.36. But we want to use the exact information right now. So let's record it. So 11 seconds will go under that, and it's related to 70 in terms of meters. Now, what else can we record? So earlier we noticed that we can count by a certain number, and then what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. It's similar. If I double the seconds, I will double the meters. So what number could we write here as to show double or multiply by 2? And then what will be recorded here? Yes, so we can write 22 seconds. That has to be then 140 in terms of meters. So go ahead and try on your own. Let's follow the pattern. So if you have 33 seconds, that means 11 times 3. And then what number will be here? So do few on your own. Pause the video and come back to check your work. Okay, what did you record for the 55 for in terms of seconds and then for distance? Yes, so it has to be 350 because 11 times 5 gives you the 55, so that means 70 times 5 will give us 350. Let's record it. And if you have more numbers, I was like color coding it, that's okay, as long as they are connected with a pattern. You could show that. So this was times 2, and then I could do this is times 3, and then maybe another color again, times 5. So you decide by doodle on your notes and record that important information. Let's move on to problem B. Using the coordinate grid on this resource page, so don't click yet, let's just read, or the E2 for Desmos, which is right here, plot pairs of values from each table and create a line for Yoshi and a line for Wendy. Use color or another means to distinguish and label the two lines. Click on the lower right corner of the graph to view in full screen mode. So if you're going to use Desmos, they're asking you to click over here on your ebook, of course, not on this video. If we are going to and figure out using the resource page, we're gonna click here. However, they want us to plot pairs of values from each table. So we do have both tables from 7-14 and now 7-15. And to see if we're gonna get, well, a line for both people. And then we wanna use 2 different colors. So go ahead and click on the link on your ebook and pause the video. After clicking on the link, you should have this visual or graph set up without the lines, of course. Notice that the x-axis or the horizontal number line is counting each square into 5s, but they recorded 10 at a time, and they also have time in seconds. Now the vertical number line, every 2 squares is counting by 50s, and they label them distance in meters. And finally, there's a title, Athlete of the Week. So if you do not have this little paper, you would have to draw it yourself. This is the information from our notebook. You do not need to copy it. We already have it. I just want to have it on one screen. So those are the values we're going to be plotting, and we're going to create lines for both people. So pause the video if you do not have this information. I will start with Wendy's data, and I'm looking at the table from my notebook. It says 5 in terms of seconds and 30 in terms of distance. And they also reminded us to color code, so I will use green for Wendy. So at the 5 seconds, this is where I'm gonna go first. And remember, this is 0, 0. So 5 seconds, and then it says 30 meters. So I'm going to go up. That's 25. Remember, we're counting the 50, so a little bit higher. That will give us 30 is what I'm looking for, right? So let's plot that as a dot. So plot means make a dot based on the information. So right here will be my first dot that I just discussed. Now let's do the second one. So at 10 seconds, we want to go up to 60. Try it on your own. And then 50 is the line, so 60 is a little bit above. And now 15 and 90. So if you want to continue, pause the video and plot Wendy's. Remember when we were looking for the speed, they were very close, so we are expecting to create a line. So right now, I'm not sure. The next one should be looking like a line. But those lines might be very close to each other since the speed were close to each other. So notice I plotted more points, and they do look on the same line for Wendy, but I am also noticing that it will go through 0, 0. So let's see if it makes sense. So 0 in terms of time means she hasn't started there. The clock or the race has not started at 0 seconds. That's what we use to before we start. And then distance, you're on the starting line, so it makes sense to stay here. So I am now going to definitely put a 0, 0 for Wendy, and you want to go back and add it to your data in your notebook. And I wanted to mention that the point over here, 25 and 150 was pretty easy because 25 is over here on my square paper and 150. So it was in the corner, and now I can see. I will connect the lines. Now I'm expecting you to try Washi's table on your own, the data. Remember to switch colors. So before I plotted the 11 and the 70, 11 in terms of seconds and 70 in terms of distance in blue color, I already plotted over here, but I realized that number, it really helped me have that number between 50 and 100. So I wrote 75 for that line, and when I did 70, I went a little bit down. For the 11, I just went a little bit to the right of 10, and I know this is 15. So this is my first blue dot. If that's helpful to you, go ahead and use that strategy. Also, since you were supposed to do the green line on your own or whatever color you used, go ahead and check your work for Wendy's line. Now continue with Yoshi's table. I will do one more. So I want to do 22 in terms of seconds and 140 for meters. So I go to the 20 seconds and I passed it. So somewhere here is 25. So 22 is here, and then I'm going to go up to 140. So a little bit less than that 150 line, and I will make the dot. And here it is. Try these on your own. And then what we want to do is read the directions after that for C. So we are plotting the values and creating lines right now. I'm not sure if I'm getting a line for Yoshi's yet because I only have 2 dots, but I do want to encourage you to do all the dots first. Think if the 0, 0 will be part of the blue line as well, and check your work with this video. So this time pause. And here are all my blue dots. I decided to make sure I have the 0, 0 is matching. And there it is. Check your work. So let's continue with letter C from the ebook directions. Based on the graph, who is running faster? Does this match your conclusion from part B of problem 7-14? Justify your answer. So they're definitely asking us to look to the graph. So you need to look at your notebook and who is running faster. We also have the data from our ratio of who is faster. So look at that and let's justify our answer. So looking at my notebook and the graph we did together, or you did on your own, I'm noticing that Yoshi's numbers are a little bit like faster, I guess, or the line is a little taller, a little steeper. So I wrote down that Yoshi is running faster and she's covering more space in terms of distance. We could see that. So that's what we want to conclude in our notebook. So if you haven't written that yet, go ahead and pause the video and write it down. Okay, lastly, the graph above shows information for Vanessa, last week's athlete of the week. What is Vanessa's rate? If she were to race Yoshi and Wendy, who would win? Okay, let's see what we're given in our textbook before we write things down in our notebook. So definitely they want us to find Vanessa's rate, but they gave us a graph. So we need to look for specific points, just like we were plotting points earlier to make the line. Now we have the line and we have to find certain points. Then they're asking us to compare with Yoshi's and Wendy's. So we also have to revisit our notes. So what do you guys think? So what is a good point to write down for Vanessa? So I'm looking at over here, it says 10 seconds, 50 meters. So that's very good information. What's another good point? Yes, the 20 seconds, 100 meters. So we could basically create a new table for Vanessa, or we could just write the speed or the rate and compare it with our 7-14 notes. So that's the strategy for this problem. Try ahead first. So I chose to record the ratio in my notebook of 50 meters of 10 seconds for that point that I picked, but I'm noticing I could use any of those points we were discussing. Now let's find the speed by having that 1 second. So do you guys remember how we did it? So yes, we want to have 1 second. So I'm going to divide by 10, because 10 seconds divided by 10 will give us 1 second, but what we do on the top, we do on the bottom. Another way of thinking for this idea was that we need to divide our numbers, but we still have to keep our units into our problem. I like to show work, so that's why I'm writing it as a ratio. So right now my numerator became 50 divided by 10, that is 5, and 10 divided by 10 on the bottom, that's 1. And now I'm going to write my meters. There's still 5, so meters. And then on the bottom, I now have second because it's 1. So the S over here is plural because it used to be 10, but now it's 1 when we divide it. So it's second. So now let's record the speed as a sentence and look at yesterday's notes. And there it is. We want to write Vanessa's speed is, and then 5 divided by 1, that's a good number. We don't need to do a long division, right? So it's going to be 5 meters. And then instead of dividing with the word second, we're going to write per second. So let's continue with our sentence. Vanessa's speed is 5. And then meters per second. Instead of the division, I'm using that new idea of per. And let's highlight it to make sure we're understanding. Instead of 1 second or divided by 1 second, we're using the word per second. Now, did you guys compare it with the other two people? And remember, like, it's about speed. So who is faster? So who did you think is faster? Yes, Yoshi's is our 6.36 meters. So Yoshi is fastest than Wendy and Vanessa all together. So write that down on your own.